All right, Jamie, what's up?
Not much, just done with work, ready to chill out for the weekend.
Okay, so as y'all know, I'm Brian from Free Me Fitness, Free Me Fitness LLC. Y'all can see the logo here. So this is Jamie. She is a licensed therapist. So I have her on here today just to pretty much answer some questions about mental health and mental illness and some stuff that people go through that I think that people need to really get some information about. So Jamie, I'm gonna turn it over to you. If you could just give like a brief introduction about yourself and what you do, that'd be cool.
All right, so my name is Jamie. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I currently work at a private practice in Farmington, seeing any range of clients from kids to adults to couples. I have experience working with patients with anxiety, depression, PTSD, ADHD, ADD, OCD. So I know those are a lot of acronyms that people might not be familiar with, but we'll go into that more. So just and the therapy that I do, it's one-on-one. So it's in a private room. Everything's confidential. I'm accepting new clients. So, but yeah, also what I work with a lot is eating disorders. And I know that's something that you specialize as far as like the physical side of things. And so I'm sure you've run into people who have every good intention, to do the
Yeah.
behavior, to do things physical, but they might run short mentally. So that's kind of what I deal with too, even as far as people who have trouble gaining weight or people who have trouble, losing weight or people who are undergoing, people have to get therapy before they do like a bariatric surgery or a gastric sleeve. So I've worked with clients in that realm too.
Okay.
As well as I do have a background too in personal training. I used to be a personal trainer for a few years
Jamie
until I
did
decided
personal trainer. Yeah.
I did until I decided like, you know what, that's not, it's like part of my thing, but not all of my thing. And I just really felt peace about doing the mental health after my own struggles with like eating and working out and things like that. My mental health training has helped me realize for myself as well as helping other people now in that
Yeah.
area.
That's how we actually met though. I forgot. Like it was like we met at the gym. You know what I'm saying? I think
Yeah.
the YMCA, yeah. So
Oh
that's
yeah, that's right. Because you were a trainer at the Y, and I just, yeah, I think we did a. You helped me do a leg press. I was leg pressing like 500 pounds.
I think it was like 100 pounds. No, no. It was a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot.
I had written it down. It was
It
500.
was a
I have
lot.
it in my phone documented.
Right. It was a lot. You needed help because it was about to crush you. So yeah, I helped you out with that. No, I helped you, whatever. Get
Yeah.
form right and everything like that. But no, like really, yeah, that's what it's about. You know what I'm saying? Like premium fitness is physical health and mental health. Like I said, so yeah, and I really deal with a lot of patients like have problems with eating. Like that's the biggest part. Like you can work out in the gym, you know what I'm saying? But the main thing is you're never going to really get to your goals. I feel like as far as weight loss, unless you really, take nutrition seriously. So a lot of people, they do struggle with that. And I think it's great that, they have counselors and stuff like that that can, with people that actually have disorders, with trying to gain weight or lose weight, they have counselors that's there to talk to them about it. Because sometimes, like I said, with mental illness, a lot of people don't know that they have a mental illness. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, I'm glad that right now, a lot of people are like coming to the forefronts with it and just really more open to talk about it. You know what I'm saying? So I think, yeah, that's a real good thing. So far as with, overall mental health, like a question I got for you is like, how do you know, like a lot of people especially during these times are depressed, you know what I'm saying? They have high anxiety, stuff like that. So I'm gonna start off with depression. So some people have, bad days. Some people are sad, you know what I'm saying? Everybody has those days, you know what I'm saying? But how do you know that you're clinically depressed and you need to actually like go talk to somebody like to seek help to where it's messing with your daily function? Like what's like some of the signs of that?
Mhm. Well, to start off, I do want to define like sadness versus depression because sadness is a normal human emotion that it would be strange if you never felt sad,
Mm-hmm.
right? Especially if like your dog dies or something happens. It's like if you're not sad, it's kind of like, well, we might have
Like you
another
ain't human.
issue there.
Like, well,
So yeah, sadness is a negative, sorrowful mood. But the one thing that differentiates sadness is that you usually find relief fairly quickly.
mm-hmm.
Where depression kind of can be triggered and take its course And when you become clinically depressed is basically when you kind of cross that 2-week threshold of negative mood, feeling hopeless, of where it cuts into you getting things accomplished, unmotivated. Because you can feel sad and still go to work. You can feel sad and still make yourself food. You can feel sad and still play with your kids. Right. But it crosses the point into like a deeper depression. And in the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistic Manual for Mental Health, there's like mild, moderate, and severe. So it's like, it's not if you're clinically depressed, you're just in one category. So there's various levels of clinical depression, but kind of crossing into clinical versus just being sad is the 2-week period. If it's for more than 2 weeks, if you have feelings of hopelessness, worthlessness, or if it's cutting into you being able to get tasks done, that you have to get done for yourself, for your family. A big thing is a lot. So that's like a loss of interest in things. When you come completely just almost disillusioned to where it's like nothing matters. Yeah. Where sadness, like we said, it's kind of like, the Lions lost again. That sucks. And if you're a really hardcore fan, if you're like a hardcore fan and you're really hoping they win and they lose, or same thing with the pandemic. It's like, wow, I'm really sad March Madness isn't happening, but it's like, okay, I still am like fine living my life. I'm not, eating ice cream every night, getting drunk every night because March Madness isn't going on. Right, so it's like, that's the main one is probably like it interferes with the rest of your life and the tasks that you have to do for yourself and the activities that you normally do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what because I actually like some people don't know. Actually, like I've seen a counselor before, and the counselor I talked to, she was like, "Oh, like when you're depressed, you pretty much like you feel like you're not like you're supposed to feel kind of joyful every day, kind of like on top of the world." So she used to ask me like, "Do you feel on top of the world?" And I'll be like, "Well, no." You know what I'm saying? So I mean, that's one of the things she pointed out. I don't know if you heard that before. I'm like, no, I don't feel that. I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe the feeling sometimes too when you're going through it, but that was one of the things that she kind of had pointed out, and I'm just like, well, for a while I felt like the end of the 2-week trial, so it definitely lasted more than 2 weeks to where I was just like, yeah, like I'm not feeling right. You know what I'm saying? I don't really get that much enjoyment out of stuff I would do. Sometimes I would just want to like lay in bed all day, you know what I'm saying, and just not really be motivated to get out there and just do, like I say, everyday tasks like that, that people just take for granted. It's to feel normal, but when you're depressed, it's not, you know what I'm saying, you don't feel that. You just feel like, oh, well, feel like worthless, you know what I'm saying? So.
Right.
Yeah. So I kind of.
Okay. I feel like, too, the expectation to always feel on top of the world, I don't think that's a realistic expectation. It's not like if you don't feel on top of the world, that means you're depressed. It could be, I don't feel on top of the world because, like, my girlfriend broke up with me or because they ran out of my favorite ice cream at the store. It's like, wow, like today sucks, but that doesn't always cross in, because that doesn't always cross into the threshold of, well, I must feel happy all the time or I'm depressed.
Exactly. Yeah, I think she was kind of extravagant with that. But yeah, that's what I want to ask you about that. Also, okay, another question, like anxiety, like that's a big thing, a lot of people deal with, especially now, of course, with the pandemic. A lot of people is like anxious, man. They don't know because pretty much anxiety is like you don't know what's going to happen. You're thinking too much into the future. You know what I'm saying? So, so I was going to ask you, what causes people to really have anxiety? Like other than like, of course, now, like I say, everybody has it, but just say what stuff was normal. You know what I'm saying? What's some of the signs that you could say that you like really have like bad anxiety? Because some people they hear it nowadays, but they really don't know what it is. You know what I'm saying? So.
Right. Well, there's, obviously you can see if someone's anxious by their body language or if they're having a panic attack. So there's also panic disorder versus generalized anxiety. So just because you don't have panic attacks doesn't mean that you don't have anxiety.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense. So anxiety is more like it can be more of a mental thing than an outward portrayal.
Okay.
And it's basically excessive worry for more days than so the DSM bases it off of 6 months. So if you look at the last 6 months, if you're excessively worrying more days than not, then they're going to diagnose you with generalized anxiety. And excessive worry, and it's excessive worry that usually has no cause.
Okay.
So obviously sometimes there's a reason to worry or be anxious. That's like the good stress. Like if someone's chasing after you with a bat, or, you know, like, of course you're going to be anxious, but if you're just worried,
like that, yeah.
Right. Yeah. But if on a day-to-day basis, you're just worried about,
Anything.
Anything. I'm trying not to say something too specific that would be like, oh no, I worry about that. So, because I was going to use the example of like getting housework done. Like if you're like, oh, I have to get housework done, I'm so annoyed that I'm not getting it done. It's like, okay, that's fine. But if you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta get it done. What if I don't? Then what if this? What if that? What if this? And it's like anxiety really comes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it comes with a lot of what ifs, anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you tend to, now people, a common thing is like depression is typically you're looking backwards, and anxiety is more like you're looking too much in the future. Gotcha. Like you're worried too much into the future about like, well, if I don't get my dishes done, then my husband will be upset with me, and he's upset with me, then he's going to find someone else. And if he finds someone else, then I'm going to be alone. And if I'm alone, then no one's going to love me. And if no one loves me, then, you know what I mean? Like that's what anxiety does. It takes you on this journey, this black hole of like, of doom.
It's terrible.
You know, and so anxiety, and so a lot of people with anxiety, and I know coming from experience, it's like people with anxiety oftentimes want to control a lot of things, because if they can control it, then they don't have to be fearful of what they're anxious about.
Wow, that's deep.
So if you notice someone who's like super controlling over every detail of their life, like you can assume that they're dealing with some level of anxiety. And anxiety, the root of anxiety is typically fear, like fear of the unknown, fear of something happening, fear of something not happening. And that's kind of those mindsets fuel the anxiety in this cycle, which can, you know, people escalate themselves into a fit. People escalate themselves into a fit instead of the actual situation causing anxiety.
Right. They make themselves kind of make it a bigger deal than what it is. You know what I'm saying? Make it, it's they say like it's imaginary, you know, if you want to say it like that, or it's not real. I can't even think of the word, but I know they talked about it when I was in counseling. Like it's like self-sabotaging. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you make it sick, basically. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I think it's really important. You know what I'm saying, to talk about that, because it could drive you crazy. You know what I'm saying? Especially in times like this. So, so jumping into the next question, like, how are some of the things you can kind of deal with anxiety? What are some of the stuff you can do to kind of relieve yourself from it? Like, you know what I'm saying? So. Kind of
well, I always look at it, I look at it from like a two-tier way to deal with it. So there's one set of ways to deal with anxiety where it's basically you're coping with the symptom, and then there's a second wave of things to do to actually deal with like the mindsets behind it. So if you're experiencing anxiety, like some of the basic ones is like deep breathing. So actually breathing deep, like inhaling through your nose, holding it for a second, and exhaling through your mouth, and just letting your lungs fill with air can actually calm down the chemicals in your brain that are causing anxiety. So it's not just like, it's not, you know, just people breathing into a bag. Like I think the stereotypical, like breathe into a paper bag. It's like, there's something to that. Not that you have to have a bag, but it's more just about like, there is a chemical reaction that goes on that can actually calm your brain down. So that's one way to kind of, a first line of defense against anxiety is to give yourself space and to breathe. Meditating like whatever way you want, whether it's through prayer or reading or like an app or something, or yoga. And it's different for everybody, right? So it's not like a one size fits all, but these are just basic things that can help with the symptom. Exercise, talking to a friend that you trust, talking to a counselor, watching a movie, taking a bath, going for a walk, petting your cat. You know, like there's things that are like so basic that can actually help. But the deeper things that help with anxiety is to be able to, I think talking to a counselor is really wise. And if not, if you don't have access to that, then doing some research. But some questions to ask yourself, or to ask oneself dealing with anxiety, is to look at yourself from a third person view. Mm-hmm. And say, okay, like, Jamie, you're anxious about this, but what if that happens?
Right. Okay.
You know, like I'm anxious. Okay, for example, I'm not really anxious about this, but we'll just hypothetical. I'm anxious that my friend's gonna get COVID-19.
Right.
Okay, so I'm in a tizzy, like, oh my gosh, my best friend might get it. She's a nurse. And I'm just anxious about it all the time. And so I can ask myself, it's like, what if she does get it?
Right. Right.
She could get it and recover, or she can get it and she can die. And it's not like, okay, that sucks, but it's like, okay, so you ask what if, and you answer the what if. Okay. You know, like the what ifs that you're afraid of, you actually answer those for yourself. And then okay. You know, like, what if my dog dies? It's like, okay, what if your dog dies? Like, does your life cease to exist?
Right. what like really is it? What are you gonna do? You know what I'm saying? It's like you worrying about it change the outcome. You know what I'm saying? So
right. So another question is to say, okay, well, if that does happen, and that's usually the thing that people are trying to prevent. It's like, okay, Jamie, looking at myself from like a God's eye view, is like, what can you control in this situation?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And come up with your own answers, because in some cases you might be able to do some things and that might provide you relief, but there's a whole nother set of things that you can't control, to where if you admit that you can't control it, it might take some of the pressure off for you to control the outcome.
That makes sense. Yeah, because it's people say it all the time, like, it's stuff you can't control. A lot of stuff, you know, it's in God's hands or whatever. It's like, what can you do? You know what I'm saying? So just telling your mind that relieve a lot of anxiety. Definitely. Okay, and depression, is it kind of like the same? Like, how would you get out of that? Like, how would you deal with that? Like, same thing, talk to a counselor. Again, you mentioned working out helped me too with anxiety and depression. So is it kind of like the same thing that you would do if you are like clinically depressed? Like, what would you suggest?
There's some of this overlap for sure, like exercising and meditating, or talking to a counselor, working out, talking to a friend, different things like that. But depression most often is rooted in like a poor relationship with yourself. And that can be insecurity, that can be regret, that can be like, I should be this way and I'm not, I should be here and I'm not. And it's kind of like depression. Huh?
I say check yourself with the person.
Yeah.
You gotta look in the mirror and be like, I gotta change something. Basically, like, right, you gotta, you know what I'm saying, start with yourself. That's what you're saying.
And it's about, like, depression usually is, yeah, like I said, tied to someone not accepting themselves. Mm-hmm. Or having a lot of regret or low self-esteem or trauma. So it is a little bit different than anxiety, like the roots of it, because if someone is anxious, it doesn't always mean that they're insecure. But too, if someone's depressed, it doesn't always mean that they're insecure, because depression can come after grief of losing somebody, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be diagnosed with depression, because there is a normal level of depression after grief. But yeah. I'm just saying, as far as like the main consensus of what I've learned with clients is, like, usually depression comes out of self-hatred, and they don't, like, people don't even realize that.
That's
you know, it's like, oh, I'm depressed because my wife left me, or I'm depressed because my friends don't text me or something. It's like, it's usually 9 times out of 10, or probably 9.9 times out of 10, is that the deeper root is self-hatred.
Self-hatred.
Or lack of self-acceptance.
Ooh. You hitting people's soul. You hitting my soul, because you got some jewels on me right now. That's like, it's blowing my mind. You giving me goosebumps over here. Like, this is some real tea. I appreciate you.
You you don't get this from a normal counselor. Like, you know, I've been to counselors too, and, you know, there's some bad counselors out there who it's like, oh, patty cake, like, just exercise and, you know, meditate and you'll be okay. Like, a lot of counselors don't go to the depth. Some do. Like, there's a lot of good ones, but if you feel like you're just being told, like, how to cope, it's like there's a whole nother depth to it that they're missing, where you can actually be missing out, even with a counselor. So it's important to find a good counselor that, like, cares about getting to those deeper things and who actually cares about you, remembers your name, and, you know, just really pays attention to you.
Yeah.
And because some people can go to a counselor for the first time and be like, oh, this is counseling. But when really it's like, no, there's a lot more to it. So I think it's helpful for people to know what to look out for when they're seeking out counseling too.
Yeah, that's true. Because, you know, you can tell, we kind of tell who don't really care. You know what I'm saying? It's just like you said, just go out and do this, do that. But I feel like if you're a counselor, man, like, you got to have some sympathy, you know what I'm saying, for your clients. You got to actually want to help them. That's like with me, like, when I train people, you know what I'm saying, like, I actually care. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's not just, oh, you know, you just going to pay me this amount of money, I'm just going to train you. Like, no, I really, like, care. I want you to be on top of you because I want you to get results. You know what I'm saying? Because I care. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing to have. Now, one thing I want to talk about is, like, okay, people have all this stuff, but what causes, I feel like, a lot of mental illness is stress. I mean, you agree with me with that? Like, stress, like emotional stress, you know what I'm saying? Just being stressed out, you know, work, whatever. So, like, just how do you think, like, stress affects, it doesn't just affect the body physically, it's physically too, not just mentally. So just kind of like pinpoint, like, how stress, like, affects, I guess, your mental.
Well, stress, like, first and foremost, obviously there's good stress, which helps motivate us and kind of put a fire under our butt to get things done or to protect ourselves. But the stress that, you know, we're talking about is where it crosses that line of being toxic to your body. So that's prolonged stress. So having prolonged stress can, you know, because obviously if someone's, like, if a bear's chasing you, you have the stress while the bear's chasing you, and then afterward you have to, like, decompress and calm down, but, like, you're not constantly stressed about that. And if you are, then that's like PTSD, and that's what we're talking about, where it becomes chronic. So chronic stress actually releases the stress hormones in your body, which I don't want to go into the science of it all because I'm not a scientist, so people do your own research, but there's different chemicals that are released into your brain.
I think cortisol is one thing that's released.
Yeah, cortisol. But there's also different hormones that are released into your brain that impact the areas of, like, memory and emotions.
Damn.
So that's how it's not just like it's a mental thing, but it's
I think the connection a little low. We had
so yeah, that's the long-term stress. Also with the stress,
I lost you for a second. We back though.
Am I back?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. So stress plays a big toll on the immune system as well. And so the gut is the second brain, right? There's a lot of research out there that, you know, gut health and brain health coexist together and are related to each other. So if your immune system is down, then that is going to play a role in the communication to your brain. And there's a whole lot of science behind it, but also, like, if you're stressed, most people have more of a tendency to, like, either not eat or overeat or eat really bad or binge drink or, you know, eat sugar or salty food. So that's all going into your gut and creating, you know, like another a cycle, because then your gut impacts your brain health.
Yeah.
So prolonged stress is what that starts to do. What was that?
No, I tell people, man, like, clean out your gut, eat healthy. You know what I'm saying? Like, because all that stuff is in there. That's why you see a lot of people I train, it's like that. They lose the belly fat. And that's what a lot of people come to me, like, they want to lose their stomach. I want to lose my stomach. But little, you know, like you said, that's like your second brain. So a lot of a lot of bullshit is like inside your gut. You got to get that out, like detox, cleanse yourself. You know what I'm saying? And that can clear your mental as well. So
Well, if
that's
you have like a block, if you have all this crap in your colon, it's like creating a block, and that's also can create a mental block,
yeah,
like where you're just stuck mentally too. And it's not like exact cause and effect, but it definitely has some impact on each other. Because even anxiety, if you have a lot of times when people get anxious, they have a stomach ache. And that's because literally when you feel
yeah,
anxious, it's releasing those chemicals and hormones into your stomach and your digestive system. That's why people will be like, oh, if they get stressed, they're like, I don't have an appetite anymore.
yeah, yeah,
And things like that, or like my stomach hurts because it's like that biological reaction to anxiety.
yeah. That's so deep. That's what people get like, and they get nervous, like, oh, I get butterflies like that, but that's really a chemical you released. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Get nervous, yeah, man. Y'all, people gotta stop getting nervous and stressing. Um, yeah. So what about like so self sabotage? Like, is that just can you kind of like elaborate on that? Is that kind of just like a self hatred thing? Like you kind of said, that's kind of like what depression is, right? It's like self sabotage, like just always thinking down on yourself and always thinking that you're not worth. You know what I'm saying? Worth
Mhm.
being. That's why you see suicide is really really high. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Mhm.
like the self sabotage is it's kind of just like not
he, Leroy wants to comment. He just meowed.
yeah.
Well, I guess yeah, we have to define what self sabotage is because that might be different things to different people.
Mm, right. Okay. So yeah. Self sabotage. I mean, so pretty much yeah. I know. I feel like I just when I was going through it, it was just like I just felt like I wasn't good enough for certain stuff. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
Mhm.
I guess that's just like just being down on yourself. And I feel like me just like working out and stuff like that was an outlet and really lacking that confidence. I think so.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it all goes together with depression, all that stuff. It's all tied in. And really going to my next question is like I feel like a lot of like males have a issue with expressing themselves. You know what I'm saying? You think that's just like an ego thing? Like they don't want to talk about oh, ain't nothing wrong with me. You know what I'm saying? Mental health and stuff like that. I think women are more open, but I think men should start talk about their emotions too, because some they let it out somehow. If it's aggression or whatever. And I think that's a big
Mhm.
issue nowadays, that, they got all this balled up aggression because they're not talking to nobody about it. So you
Right,
think,
and I think I don't blame men for not being as open, but I think that as you know the culture moves towards men being more emotional or expressing that would really be a good service to even women or to men's families
mm-hmm,
to kind of get help that they need that maybe they're impacting others around them. Because the basic model of like if you have a family or a relationship, it's like, yeah, you want to take care of you because what you're doing and going through is impacting others around you.
mm-hmm,
So all that to say, it's like, I don't blame people for not expressing it because it does come to from a cultural standpoint. And even, there's a cultural, like American culture, and then there's also like a family culture. Because I even have some women who grew up in a culture where it's like, don't express your emotions, suck it up. So it's not just like
right,
men, but there's even women who are raised in that type of culture. So, but I think men more so are taught like, shut up and get over it.
right, like deal
And
with it,
especially so if you have that mindset, it's kind of like if you can't deal with it or if you express it, then you failed. And
right,
who wants to fail?
exactly. Feel
Right. So,
a loser,
um,
weak,
and a generation above us, especially like clients that I've seen who are older than us, maybe like middle age,
mm-hmm,
um, it's kind of like the men expect themselves to be robots and never feel anything or never grieve or never be sad. And it's kind of like, okay, just move on. So that I use that term a lot. It's like, you're not a robot. Like who told you that you had to be a robot? And
exactly,
so it's like, it's sometimes, and two, sometimes the other side of it is like, yeah, there are a lot of men that are prideful. There are
mm-hmm,
a lot of men that don't want to fail or lose or admit that they need help.
mm-hmm,
Um, But then too, it's like some men aren't even really aware what they're doing because that's just who they are and what they've been taught.
Right.
So because it's like the men that I've seen in therapy, it's like, well, they're in therapy now and they didn't even realize that they had these mindsets.
Right.
You know, so yeah, and there is a sense of embarrassment too to ask for help, because it's kind of like, it's like, honey, stop and ask for directions. It's like, no, I got this.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, just like, how lost are you gonna get before you ask for help? It's like mentally, it's like mentally, how long are you gonna drive on your own and get lost before you're like, oh shit, I'm in the middle of nowhere. Like, who's around to help? And you're just hoping that someone's around to be like, go to therapy, or someone's around to listen, or to like have a shoulder for you once that breakdown happens.
Exactly. You just get to that point to where it's like you got no choice but to seek help. Exactly.
Yeah.
So all right. So I got one more question for you. So pretty much, like, of course, the COVID-19 is going on. So people.
Oh, is it? What is that?
Hey, you know what's going on? Coronavirus. All this stuff is going on. What you trying to come at me, Jamie? What's up?
I'm just saying I don't know what COVID. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay.
Acting like I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, I know you don't. You trying to use reverse psychology on me. I know what you're counselors is something else. But no.
Which is why this is the reason why we're doing this Zoom, because we don't want to get the $1,000 fine.
Exactly. We could have did this in person, but we're being cautious. You know what I'm saying? We're doing social distancing. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
We did interviews with Matt with an N95 mask on, but Jamie, she don't want to agree to that. So that's cool. You know what I'm saying? We're just gonna do this Zoom for y'all. But yeah, so with the pandemic, COVID-19, coronavirus, with all this going on, people, you know what I'm saying, they have a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry that people not working right now. People don't know if they're gonna go back to work, and all this stuff. So what is what do you think was the solution? Like, how would you say people should relax? I mean, I know you talked about meditation and stuff like that. But.
Okay. So because I'm obviously dealing with the pandemic as well, and also talking to clients who are in the same boat. So it's kind of like, all right, I got to take pressure off myself to have all these answers for people when I'm going into all this just as blind as everyone else.
Yeah.
Right, in dealing with the pandemic. So what?
So it's like you're not even on Earth dealing with it too. Like, I guess.
Right, like I'm a separate entity or some like guru that I can just tell you how to deal with this. It's like, no, I'm trying to learn how to deal with it myself. So I've kind of, something that's benefited me and something that's benefited clients is like, just take the pressure off yourself. Like, yeah, you have time to like get all this stuff done, clean the house, but if you don't feel like it, don't.
Yeah.
The next day you might feel like it.
Exactly.
Give yourself permission to have whatever reaction you're gonna have to all this, because this is not something that someone's like taught you how to deal with. It's like if you have a cut, like you've been told like, okay, put a Band-Aid on it.
Right. Right.
What if someone told you like, hey, if you ever deal with a global pandemic and you're stuck in your house, like here's what you should do. So I mean, those things might come out now, but yeah, taking that pressure off yourself and just making sure that you're taking care of your basic needs, like make sure you have a roof over your head, food, clothing, utilities are paid for, transportation, like the basics. And I think to maintaining a routine for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's gonna be a new routine than what you're used to. But if you can find some sort of routine or set some small goal, because some people are like, yeah, I'm gonna lose 100 pounds during this, or I'm gonna start my business. It's like, okay, cool, good for you, but you might run out of steam quick because you watch the news and now everything is doomed and the world's gonna end. Like, you're not gonna be motivated to lose 100 pounds now. So it's like, just accept yourself day to day where you're at.
Yeah.
and
just
maintain
relax,
some
man.
routine.
Yeah.
Huh?
I said, no, just relax. Yeah, get into that routine. Like you can't change it. Like,
Yeah, and another thing I had written down, I think it was the balance. Oh, balancing, like, yeah, first of all, accepting where you're at day to day, and also balancing what you're doing. You know, like balancing especially your news intake and
yeah,
things.
I don't even watch the news. I don't watch.
If you know that things are going to create like anxiety or depression for you, like don't watch it. If you know that scrolling through Instagram, looking at everybody in bikinis or swimsuits is going to make you feel depressed, like don't watch it. Go work out or something. Like getting to know. I think this is a good period for people not to just busy themselves again, but to get to know themselves better.
That's you hit it right on the nose with that. Get to know that stuff. Like a lot of people feel like, oh, I'm bored. Like, how are you bored? You know what I'm saying? Like, read a book. You know what I'm saying? This is the time to do self-reflecting and work on your flaws. Work on, stuff that you weren't able to work on when were busy working. Like everybody was so busy doing it, working. Okay, now you got, you know what I'm saying? There's no excuse. There's no excuse now. So yeah, this is the time to self-reflect and definitely just not watch the news so much because it's going to make you more anxious and more depressed, and just take time, meditate, and work on yourself. So
stay off the Facebook arguments and stay off all the
getting back in Facebook war and all this stuff and this and that, and yeah, just relax, people. Just relax and
know that it's only, even if this lasted for 6 months, it's like, okay, what's 6 months of your life? Like in the big scheme, if you live until 50, 60, 70, 80, it's like, okay, the 6 months, looking back, it's like, wow, that was such a short amount of time. So kind of looking at a bigger picture to be like, okay, I can get through this even though it sucks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, people they looking too much in the future, right? They getting too much anxiety. Like just live in the moment. You know what I'm saying? And like you said, the time go by fast anyway. So before you know it, it'll be over. So I appreciate you, Jamie. You were amazing. You know what I'm saying? You're a big help. You had a lot of knowledge. You stunned me on some stuff. You know what I'm saying? Some stuff I didn't know about mental health. And I'm sure, people are going to really appreciate you, giving that information out. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you and being able to talk and connect. So we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, we will. And that's, Free Me Fitness. Y'all check me out. freemefitness.com. Now, Jamie, she's a licensed counselor. If you want to, put your Instagram, whatever, Facebook, whatever, so some people need some help. They need somebody to talk to. You know what I'm saying? They can reach out to you.
Yeah, I don't have like my own personal pages because I just work at the clinic, but it's Michigan Mental Wellness in Farmington Hills, and then we're doing teletherapy too.
Okay, cool. So you can find her there. All right, so thanks again, Jamie. We will be doing this soon. It might be a part 2. Who knows? We'll see how this goes. All right, I'll talk to you soon.
All right, sounds good. Have a good weekend.
All right, you too.
All right, bye.
Bye.